Good afternoon, Lynchburg fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Rags here in Season 3, Episode 55. And today, here we are honored here to have the head baseball coach of Lynchburg College, Lucas Jones, with us. Coach Jones, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Sure, no problem. And hey, right on the heels of you guys winning the national championship.
Yeah, it was we got back late on a Friday from Iowa and turned around on Monday with youth camp and 50 12 and under kids that'll humble you in a heartbeat. And so not a whole lot of time to enjoy it in the moment just with everything else that was going on. But yeah, the last couple of weeks distancing ourselves from it has certainly given us some time to reflect and enjoy on some of those highlights from the trip and from the championship.
Yes, now with it being in Iowa, now not Wisconsin, was there any time to maybe take in the sights there in Iowa, or definitely with being a baseball fan going to the Field of Dreams site?
Yeah, that was actually probably one of our neater experiences out there on one of our off days. We took a majority of the team out there, and then most of the families that were out there as well joined us. And so just one afternoon, we rolled up to the Field of Dreams, and you had kids running around playing. You had our guys that, heck, half of them haven't seen the movie, so just getting them engaged with, all right, now I got to go see this movie now, and we got to tour the house and kind of got an update or just an um, educational process to how everything was picked and how the movie was shot. And it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat to kind of hear about the history of that movie and how it all came together.
Yes, I know with growing up in a military family in the mid 90s, ended up moving from California back to Virginia and ended up taking in that site there. And definitely, not only with being a movie fan, but definitely with being a baseball fan. So I'm sure with you guys, being nearby is definitely awesome experience to take in. So hey, so we're starting off there with the World Series. I mean, definitely with great great pitching there with Potts, complete game by Pond and complete game there by Arrington there when you guys were going through bracket play.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Those guys were hosses, and then we didn't have to use our first team All American closer, but couple 30 pitches in the first game, and then he started in the national championship
Right.
game 3. So it was quite a setup, and it was because of those three guys going 3 straight games of complete games and keeping our bullpen fresh. And yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said our pitching wasn't the biggest strength of the year and carried us. But we also defended at a high level. We led the country in double plays and had some other things that I think worked well with our pitching staff. And then the offense was good enough. I mean, I think anytime you're out in those high level situations, you have to pitch and you have to defend and minimize great teams, in terms of extra outs and extra opportunities. And again, for the most part, most of those games out there, we were able to, kind of do that and keep that at bay.
Yes, and then the World Series, you guys played the other pool winner, John Hopkins, and definitely there for the Mid Atlantic region. You guys being from Lynchburg, Virginia, John Hopkins being there from Baltimore, but here you guys meet, there in Iowa for the national championship.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, Johns Hopkins is a national brand, of course, and probably a world brand when you really think about all the great things that they have done as a university, and so getting an opportunity to kind of play, them in a national championship setting was great. I mean, I think if you would have told us we would have made that, we would have played anybody and anywhere and anytime just to have that chance, and we're grateful for that. But the fact that it was Hopkins, and they've been number one in the country, I think, majority of the year, and obviously had an outstanding season. And you saw two different teams in terms of how they were put together, and both teams had a lot of success, and ultimately, again, we're fortunate there to kind of hold on to that one-run lead there in that third game to win it.
Yes, and you start off, like you said, with your pitching, but Potts there, complete game there in game one, and you know that with it being for the national championship, Johns Hopkins not gonna lay down, and they force an if game there for all the marbles, and y'all's reliever, started there at the if game and finished the season 9-1 and 13 saves. He definitely had a great year. Whether he was um, on the hook for the decision or closing the game out this year.
Yeah, no, Batch was a stud all year for us, and a big reason why we were in the position that we were in.
Yeah. Yeah, and so also here with I know we started off here with the national championship here because that was just just at the beginning of the month, but it's probably great for you to see with being an alum of Lynchburg and seeing since you've taken the reins of being the head coach and seeing the growth here in the baseball program and after the pandemic, 2021 you guys 36 and 15, 2022 36 and 12, and then this year 48 and 8. So definitely out of the pandemic, you guys have had success, and this is your school.
Yeah, it is. It's unique, right, to have the chance to coach at your alma mater. But this is also my hometown. I grew up here, went to Heritage High School right down the road, and most of my wife's family is still in Lynchburg, and my family, my parents are still here. So it was a special time to be able to come home, and then once you start building the program and the vision that you want, you got to kind of clearly share that with your coaching staff, and then ultimately with the players you inherit to kind of build that culture. And then the post pandemic, we were starting to figure out how to win a little bit, some tight games there right before everything shut down. I think we were 11-4 when it went south in a hurry with everybody. And then you figure out those 2.5, 3 months, how to kind of keep the team engaged. And I think looking back, that was probably one of the most opportunistic times that we took advantage of, with Google meetings and individual meetings, and just constantly trying to kind of build relationships from afar. And, our response in 2021 was huge, not just on what we were able to accomplish on the field, but just how we approached it, right? Where a lot of universities were cutting back games or conference schedule only. We kind of put the pedal to the metal. We played the most games of any Division III school in the country that year. We were fortunate to go to a regional, ended up losing to Salisbury in that 2-0 winter bracket game, and just couldn't recover from that. They ended up going on to win the national championship that year. But I think that was a big year. That was a big response in terms of our administration kind of putting everything in motion for us to be successful. And development wise, I think we had some advantage on some other teams just because of how we approached, again, the COVID aspect of things, and still being careful, but also understanding that we can't necessarily have all these roadblocks to keep us from continuing to grow as a program. So we were fortunate with that, and it led to the kind of culmination at the end, here this last month or so.
Yes, and then with doing some research there on ODAC baseball, I mean, there at the beginning, Lynchburg baseball was definitely at the top, and and then now seeing where you guys are at and winning the national championship here on the 40th anniversary of back the '83 team, being cream of the crop.
No, I think when you link those things together and again go back and like connect the dots on the history of the program and kind of see where we are now, it's back to a lot of those early 80s teams. I think we won 3 or 4 ODAC championships in a row. Uh, have a ton of regional appearances up to a certain point and some other things that, we're heading in the right direction. And even in, the time I played here, 04, 05, 06, we had some really good teams. And then some teams after that, 08, they went to a regional, 2012, they went to a regional, won the conference. And then, just for whatever reason, there for a couple years after that kind of 2012 run, it had gotten away from what the history of the program had been used to. And so to get it back, we heard from a lot of alumni and a lot of people from a lot of different years, people reaching out from even as early as the 50s. We were hearing from some of the baseball alum from that group all the way through guys I played with and beyond those years. And just I think the pride they had, the excitement they had for what we were able to do, just it means a lot, just again being an alum of the program and just what I value as something that's important to me. And obviously everybody wants to win and everybody wants to be able to celebrate that, but most importantly, I just want our guys to be, or alumni to be proud of what we've put out there, win or lose. And I think we felt that. And again, it just kind of all came together with maybe a little bit more of a celebration than we maybe envisioned in year 6 of the coaching staff. So
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, even this year, I mean, here you guys won the regular season, you guys won the conference tournament, and then I don't know, I can't figure it out, but you guys had to start the playoff run there with no cupcake region there with going down to Rocky Mountain, the tradition that North Carolina Wesleyan baseball has. But you guys got through that, and then the super regional you guys were able to host, but you had the ODAC rival Shenandoah there, and Avery Neves there with the consistent player that he's been in y'all's program with that key home run there in the bottom of the 8th of the super regional series.
yeah, I mean that, like you said, that stretch there. I mean, you're never going to find an easy opponent once you get to that level of baseball. But the super regional being matched up with Shenandoah, and I said this, after a national championship, and it's no disrespect to the other 7 teams that were out there because they're all incredible in terms of getting to that point. But I thought Shenandoah just consistently across the board was probably the best team we played all year, and just unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we had to play them like 6 times and all in, pretty big moments and pretty big parts of the season. So I think we were both pretty frustrated when we had to match up in the super regional because I think both of us felt like either program deserves to potentially play another opponent to get to Iowa and maybe match up there. And certainly that was my hope and their hope as well, just the mutual respect that we have for each other, knowing each other so well and knowing the program so well and always the tight games that we play. You just never feel real confident or real comfortable against an ODAC opponent, but surely not against Shenandoah. So I do think, looking back, as the misfortune would turn out, it's also probably fortunate that we're matched up with a super regional like that because we felt like, all right, this is probably one of the best teams in America. So what we see when we get out to Iowa, it's still going to be good, no doubt. But I think we're prepared. I think we can have a chance to win this thing, and you just got to kind of put everything in motion, and play your best baseball, or close to it during that stretch.
Yes, and and then also there in the ODAC, I mean the way that you guys have had the Final Four conference tournament, being at a neutral site, and this year, playing at the University of Richmond, stadium, and the upgrades that the Spiders have done. I mean, I think as an ODAC fan, it's definitely, great to reward the teams that are the so-called Final Four there in the conference and playing the conference championship out in a neutral site.
Yeah, that four team tournament right before you even get to a regional, that was a regional. I mean,
Right.
Randolph Macon's the 4 seed going into that thing, and they got Snell Sire on the mound in game one, who's 94, 95 in the first 3 to 4 innings, and he's sitting 92, 93, the entire game. You got Roanoke, who has an argument to be in a regional as well. And when you look at the, kind of probably last 4 or 5 teams in, you're like, man, Roanoke on paper and resume wise is as good, if not better than them. And then obviously us and Shenandoah there. So you got yourself a mini regional that a lot of conferences, you might have one really elite team or maybe two, but when you look across the board, you got 4 or 5 like we do in our league, and then really past that, you got some really good programs that um, you know, any given weekend, any given midweek game, conference wise, can win, and can make a run. And that's what's really neat about our conference, is just that it prepares you so well for those types of situations.
Yes, and so what is this summer here for you? I mean, winning the national championship, you guys play 56 games, and then like you said, right, as soon as you guys come home, the first day of the next week, you guys have camp. So July 4th is right around the corner. So what you guys hitting the road here? Recruiting, and really no time to take your breath and sit back, huh?
Nah, I mean, this is the heavy part of our recruiting cycle, is just building that group of the 2024 class. And unfortunately, winning a national championship, that part of the process doesn't stop. You got to continue to grow as a program, regardless of where you might feel like you're at. And now it becomes even more challenging, because you've reached the peak of your sport, you've reached the peak of your level. And so that just incentivizes others to potentially model what you've done. And we have put in a lot of hard work from a recruiting side of things, and bees and Coach Garcia and Coach Solbach and Coach Gabe Garcia have done a tremendous job of being out even the last couple weeks. I mean, Travis Beasley, who's our associate head coach, and just a phenomenal pitching coach. I mean, his 40th birthday was literally a week after Iowa, and he's in Richmond recruiting, not even able to enjoy that. So trying to pull the boss card, being like, dude, go home, man. Enjoy enjoy your birthday and Father's Day, and celebrate, that way. Don't, but that's just kind of the drive that you guys have. And you want to be able to take some time to enjoy it as well. And I think at some point over the summer, there'll be some downtime and some opportunities. But June and July are pretty hectic. Just being able to build that arsenal, and build that portfolio. Hopefully that will get guys invested and interested, kind of finishing and finalizing those decisions in the fall.
Yes, and I see that as you got into the coaching ranks, I mean, you had experience being part of a staff at VCU, being part of a staff at George Mason. I know with my brother Mike Ragsdale, playing at William and Mary in the early 90s. At that time, VCU and George Mason part of the CAA. So, I definitely know how those two, programs are well respected here in the state. So just talk about your experience here there with, starting at the assistant coaching ranks there with VCU and George Mason.
Yeah, so when I first kind of got into coaching, I served more of kind of an operational role. I guess my title was more of kind of director of baseball ops at VCU while I was getting my graduate degree
Mm.
in sports administration, and was fortunate. My high school coach um, played with Coach Keys, or had a relationship with Coach Keys, and so he was able to connect us and make a call, and was able to get on his staff, and also at the time was Sean Stifler, who's now the head coach at Notre Dame, was his first year as a pitching coach. So we kind of came in, together in terms of just, our first years at VCU. And so since then, fortunate to have him as a great friend, and a guy that in this profession I've leaned on, quite a bit, and taken away from VCU for a long time, because that was back in 2007. And so
Mm.
being able to have that, that guy, with me for the ride, and being able to bounce coaching ideas off of him and things. I think that's what I take away from my time at VCU the most, is my friendship with Stiff, but also just looking back at Coach Keys and kind of how he did things. I mean, we won the league that year, we won the CAA, and went to the Coastal Carolina Regional. And just being able to kind of look at what a program, what championship level looks like at the Division I level, and how Coach Keys did some things. At the time, you're just kind of like taking it all in. You're 22, 23 years old. You're like, you don't know what you don't know. And you're looking back, he was unique. Coach Keys was a unique individual. And I mean that in the most positive way. He had a way about um, his coaching style. He had a way about his system and his style that really is kind of was ahead of his time. And you look now at everything that's put out there, and you could argue one way or the other, but Coach Keys really was relying on pitching and defense, and you saw that with a lot of his pitching staffs, and then just the players he was able to track from different parts of the country to play at VCU in the middle of Richmond. Was fascinating, and you don't really appreciate what you had and who you were around until years later. Unfortunately, he passed away, and so it's tough not to be able to kind of share those memories with him and kind of come back and reflect with him. You kind of take that time for granted, and then um, but he was probably one of the best that I've been around in terms of kind of the motivating factors. And again, you don't appreciate it till years later. And then was fortunate to get my first job at Randolph-Macon with Coach Hedrick, and worked there for 3 years. And then you mentioned my time at George Mason, so got my first full-time job at the Division I level with Coach Brown, and couldn't find two polar opposite coaches at the Division I level, between Coach Keys and then Coach Brown, who again has more wins and more baseball under his belt than I've been alive, right? And it's all been at one school at George Mason, and he recently retired a couple years ago. But fortunate to be able to work for Skip, just from the chance to do my own thing, to be able to learn and to fail and to succeed. And he was very comfortable in giving you that autonomy and giving that chance to develop as a young coach. And for that, I'm greatly appreciative. And I think he's just been through so many experiences that there really isn't anything that he hasn't, been taught or seen or dealt with that you can learn from. And I think those two guys in particular that you mentioned had a huge impact on how things are done today, and certainly some things that you may look at and be like, all right, I want to try and do those differently, and that's okay too. Just like I'm sure the coaches look at me and be like, yeah, that guy's a fool, I'm not doing it that way, and if I'm a head coach, I'm going to do it a different way. And think that's what you do as an assistant. You kind of just build, parts of what you learn with people you work with and work for, and then you just kind of establish maybe a lot of that core value that they had, but also trying to put some of your own, values into it as well.
Yeah, well, Coach Jones, I certainly appreciate your time for coming on, and I know with coming to Lynchburg when we've had friends on the opposing side, I know that the Lynchburg lacrosse team and other athletic teams there within Lynchburg College definitely came out to support y'all's home games.
Yeah, it's a unique place. It's a special place, and a place that you feel supported across the board. And I think other sports would say the same, hopefully, about baseball. And we share in that celebration and trying to lift each other up to play at the highest level. So it's really it's an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah, well, hey, Coach Jones, appreciate your time and congratulations here with the baseball team. Winning the national championship at the beginning of the month, and I think for the athletic program, it's only the fourth national championship, with the others being women's soccer and equestrian. So definitely the first one there in the baseball program.
Well, thank you very much, and appreciate you having me on. And it's awesome what you're doing and talking sports and highlighting, especially Virginia, athletics. It's cool to have something like this, and really appreciate you doing that.
Well, thank you. And hey, another small George Mason connection. The buddy of mine, Mike Sharp, that gave me this idea. He went to George Mason there in the mid '90s. There played basketball. So definitely, small world here within the state of Virginia athletics.
Yeah, for sure. You can connect the dots pretty easily, right?
Right, right. So, all right, fans. Well, hey, appreciate Coach Jones coming on here and sharing his story and his, leading Lynchburg College baseball here and this year, just on the heels of a national championship. So, have a great summer and look forward to following Lynchburg baseball there next year.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. All right.
Take care.